Ever wondered if there's anyone in Star Trek who was so incompetent that they actually saved the universe? If so, then stick around. Hey Trekkies, welcome back to another episode of Yelling About Star Trek. My name is Christian Fox, and this is the show where I yell at you about all things Star Trek for your amusement. So today, I want to talk about a character who was so incompetent that he actually saved the Star Trek universe as we know it. And if you're like, wait, who could that be? Well, let me tell you, that gentleman is Mr. Beach. And if you're like, Mr. Beach, who the heck is Mr. Beach? Well, he's this guy from the Wrath of Kahn, and I would say his most famous line, maybe not most famous line, but a line that I always quote and seem to repeat for no reason, is his line about Ceti Alpha 5, which he thinks is actually 6 at the time, where he says, Krylon gas, sand, high velocity winds, incapable of supporting life. And of course, he actually has more to do, which we'll get into in a second, but that's kind of his line and a line that I associate with Mr. Beach. As we know, in the Wrath of Kahn, Chekhov and Captain Terrell beam down to what they think is Ceti Alpha 6, but it's actually Ceti Alpha 5, and they encounter Kahn, and Kahn is able to interrogate them, put the little slugs in their ears, and take over the Reliant, which of course causes Kahn to, do all the things that happens in the movie. But while they're on the planet, they leave Mr. Beach in charge. And Kyle is also on the ship, which is kind of cool because he's a full commander now. And, he's trying to reach the captain. He keeps hailing the captain like, hey, Captain Terrell, what's going on? Hey, Captain Terrell, what's going on? Please talk to me. How come you're not responding? Please respond. I'm worried about you. And he doesn't respond. And Mr. Beach comes up, sees what's going on, and then says to Kyle, let's give them a little more time. Again, he says to Kyle, let's give them a little more time. And what's kind of strange about that is that he is a full commander, so you assume that he knows Starfleet protocol, which is that if an away team doesn't report in within a period amount of time, then something's probably happening and they should beam them up. And if they're not responding to their communications, or responding to hails rather, then they definitely have to beam them up. But instead he says, let's give them a little more time. And in that time, Khan is able to interrogate them, as I said, give them the slugs, then take over the Reliance, and then actually do what happens in the rest of the movie, which is try to go and attack Kirk, which leads to Spock getting killed, and all of that's pretty horrible. So basically, everything that happens in Wrath of Kahn is Mr. Beach's fault. Not entirely his fault, because Kirk is also to blame for a lot of Wrath of Kahn, but had Mr. Beach done his job properly, he would have been able to beam up Chekhov and Terrell and basically prevent Kahn from doing Kahn things in the movie. So that's a problem, and it makes Mr. Beach look pretty bad. But bear with me, because I know this is a bit of a stretch, but hear me out. Basically, by Mr. Beach saying, let's give them a little more time, he actually saved the entire universe as we know it. So let's just assume that Mr. Beach had followed protocol and beamed Chekhov and Terrell back up to the ship. Then they would have been able to say to Starfleet, hey, Khan is there. We should probably do something about that. But they would have been fine. They would have been on their way. Han still would have been on the planet. And then Kirk and Spock wouldn't have been sent on the mission. And everything would have been fine. But here's the problem. If there was no mission, then Spock probably would have stayed on Earth conducting training missions. Kirk would have gone back to his cabin just to be miserable and to probably get more lectures from McCoy about not doing anything. And in that time, the whale probe would make its way to Earth and disable all the starships and cause ionization in the atmosphere and cause the planet to become filled with clouds. I'm not sure how that works, but it causes cloud cover or something with the signal. I'm not quite sure how that works, but basically by the probe being there, it causes a lot of havoc on Earth and could potentially destroy all life had it stayed around a little longer. But because Spock and Kirk were still on Earth, Kirk and Spock would have been disabled, so they wouldn't have been able to go back in time to go get the whales to bring them forward in time to tell the probe what to go do with itself, as McCoy so politely puts it, meaning that the probe would never have left and probably would have wiped out life as we know it if Mr. Beach had not given them more time and beamed up Chekhov and Terrell right away. So actually, by not giving them more time and letting the plot progress, the universe was saved. It's a wild theory, but I think it makes sense. This was just a random thought I had one night when I should have been sleeping. I hope you found this amusing, but Either way, let me know. I'd love to hear from you. And if you like what you saw, hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss any of my future videos, because I do post them regularly. And in the paraphrased words of Captain Kirk, I shall see you out there. That away.